So there I was, sitting on the stand, peering over across a bunch of people, perpetrator, defendant, lawyers. We got a judge looking at me, talking about magic cards in a district court. And I never imagined in a million years that would be where I'd find myself.
So I was up in highest level of alertness ever in my life at that point. Just keeping my eye on just every car driving by the door, just watch people get out of the cars like, could that be them? Could that be them? As soon as I saw them, my heart started pounding, and I immediately told the officers, asked them,
It was a typical evening at Curio Cavern, a gaming store located in Springfield, Virginia. Inside, a group of about 20 Magic players were playing, chatting quietly at tables scattered throughout the building. They were playing in a Magic the Gathering tournament, but they were also part of a sting operation in conjunction with the store and the police. If they didn't act casual and keep their cool, there is no telling what could have happened when the potentially armed suspect showed up at the store and the trap that was set was sprung.
My name is Kemper Pogue. I've been playing Magic since got introduced in Onslaught block. Really got into Legacy around 2010 to 2016 or so, during those kind of the heyday of the Star City Games circuit, where you could pretend to be a pro, and that was tons of fun. There were the true pros. I feel like those guys who were doing the articles and really riding the circuit, but it was a lot of fun for kind of be that tier just below that. We're just top 8 in one of those tournaments, or top 16 in one of those tournaments. Felt amazing. As a group, we kind of broke Green Sun Zenith in the zoo archetype, which is pretty cool. I think I take credit for being the first person to Green Sun Zenith for a Dryad Arbor in a tournament, because it was a Star City Games tournament like the day after release. So that was pretty exciting.
One evening, Kemper was playtesting with his friends for a Legacy tournament. He had filled his backpack with a gauntlet, multiple top-tier Legacy decks for a full night of preparation.
Most of my decks, most of all of our dual lands and fetches and Force of Wills and Tarmogoyfs and all these things were sleeved up in a backpack. That was like 6 decks or something.
So let's do some math real quick. If the current meta that they were preparing for was similar to a 2015 Eternal Weekend Legacy Championships results, they might have been playing Delver, Miracles, Death and Taxes, Storm, Omnitel, and Lands, and have a copy of all of those decks in the backpack ready to prepare. At today's prices, we're talking about a backpack worth potentially $21,000. At the time, they valued it at about $8,000. So the night of Legacy playtesting was in full swing, but Kemper's real test would start the next morning.
What it was getting up, getting in the car with coffee, going to work. And I distinctly remember when I got in the car, I was like, why is the glove compartment down? And I just kind of slapped it up. But kind of throughout the day, it was nagging me. I was like, wait, why was that open? I don't really get it. And then I look in the back of my car, and I noticed that things were disheveled, things had been moved around, and also that my orange, very valuable backpack was missing. I guess you go into kind of denial for a second. I was like, wait, this can't be. So I go into my house, run around, go to the basement, make sure I'm like, wait a minute, come on, this bag's got to be somewhere. And then, of course, now it's just adrenaline pumping, and I realize that, my bag is stolen. I go across the street to somebody else's house, one of my neighbors, and I say, hey, something was wrong with my car. Did anything happen to you guys? And he's like, yeah, the whole neighborhood got hit. Somebody had gone through all of the cars in the neighborhood that were unlocked. Folks got their, cash stolen. A lot of jewelry was taken. And I was like, oh my God, well, all right. And I asked if there was any follow-up or anything. And they said, well, we called the cops, but they said, it's something that's been happening, and there's not much we can do about it. We have our eyes open, but, no promises about trying to get these guys. And I was like, well, that's not an option, because the stakes are much higher for me. No one had an $8,000 backpack stolen in my neighborhood, I don't think. The officer came. He was a really nice guy. Then he asked me, is there anything that you can identify, any details about the property you can tell me about, so I can, identify that, that we can keep an eye out for it. So here I am, police officer, he's got his notepad out, and I'm saying words to him like, Judge Foil, sort of Feast and Famine, Force of Will, signed by Therese Nielsen. And this guy's writing this stuff down, Stoneforge Mystic with Top Hat and Cane. So then he is frank. He says, well, what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye on pawn shops. But then he says, but to be honest, this type of stuff, this kind of theft is a really hard thing to catch. And I was like, okay. And then I went to Facebook, posted up. The community was awesome there. They were like, Okay, we'll keep our eyes open on eBay. If there's any cards you need to borrow for tournaments, let me know. That's when we really started getting moving. So my Facebook post kind of made me realize what the next steps would be, kind of south of Baltimore down to Fredericksburg. The idea was just letting all the shops know what was going on, because the idea was these guys are idiots. They don't know what they're dealing with. They're probably seeing, Pokemon cards, let me just Google a shop, after they go through their pickings, let's go here and let's see how much they're worth or something. That was the hope, that they would just kind of do that.
One of the store owners that Kemper had called was a friend of his and had some valuable information. 2 men had come into the store trying to sell cards that matched the description of Kemper's collection. The store owner suspected they were trying to sell stolen merchandise and directed them to a gaming store in Springfield called Curio Cavern, where Kemper was a regular.
At that point on, it came to these guys just kind of going from store to store to store trying to find the best deal. And we were just kind of one step ahead. Well, the community was. People I didn't even know, stores I'd never been to, we're catching on, and kind of when we're purposely forwarding them to other stores and then calling those stores, letting them know that they would be coming. And kind of just a domino effect. Curio Cavern was the end result of where they showed up.
Hi, I'm Tom. I work at Curio Cavern. It's a hobby shop I started in 2011, pursuing that dream come true kind of thing of making people happy, and grew up going to hobby shops like this ever since I was a kid. It's the only place I really fit in as a kid, having the typical struggle of finding friends and people that share interests. We're now on 3 stores, all in the Northern Virginia area. The MTG scene in Springfield, Virginia and Northern Virginia, it's a big mix of casual and competitive. We get a lot of players for Commander for sure. We do get a healthy amount of Legacy, old school 93, 94 format. I would say Modern's probably one of the bigger formats after Commander.
The suspected thieves, after multiple redirects, had found themselves at Curio Cavern. But the grasp Kemper had on the situation could evaporate instantly if the suspects became at all suspicious.
The 2 guys that stole his collection, they came in and tried to sell it to us. It was a sizable collection, and it was pretty obvious they didn't know what they had, so it was immediately raising some red flags. And while we were going through the collection, I remember distinctly noticing cards that had top hats drawn on them in the artwork in like black Sharpie. And I had seen that before. I've seen other players playing against Kemper in our Legacy tournaments. So what are the chances, that someone else has top hats drawn on their cards? Never seen that otherwise.
Well, I know that some detectives will tell me that they're easier to track down than serial numbers and VIN numbers and stuff like that. When I was in middle school, there was this one video that got everybody angry. And there's these 2 guys, and they did a video of them ripping up their entire Magic collection. I always thought it was kind of funny. It's like Magic cards are worth so much money, but really they're only worth money if you're willing to sell them. So it's kind of inspired by that just kind of philosophy. We thought that top hatting cards and anthropomorphizing things that make no sense was just kind of a funny thing.
So Tom, hoping to buy more time and retrieve the rest of Kemper's collection, asked the pair to return that night with everything to make a large cash deal there in the store, and the men reluctantly agreed.
So immediately that raised red flags, and I tried to basically tell the guys, we want to buy this collection, but we need time to amass the funds. And that way I was able to get contact information for them. But I told them there was at least a couple $1,000s. The loose assessment of the collection was like, yeah, this was obviously like a several $1,000 collection. I wanted to dangle in front of them that is quite a carrot, an incentive for them to come back here, other than like go to another hobby shop to try to get a quick buck on it, because I know that I had to kind of make them feel like it's here where they're going to get a good value and a good price. I contacted the local police department, explained to them the situation. That's when the communication with the police went into high gear. They planned to have 2 or more undercover officers stationed inside the shop and summon an unmarked car around the block. So then we contacted the criminals, and they were like, yeah, we'll come in that day. Little did they know.
Something that complicates the situation is that I live in Prince William County, and then Curio Cavern's in Fairfax County. So there were 2 police departments involved. So this was a cross-department collaboration sting effort, which is pretty amazing to me. So we had a detective who was, in charge of the case because it was stolen in Prince William County, but then trying to be sold in Fairfax County. So Fairfax County detective and a Prince William County detective, it upgraded to that point away from the police officer because there was actually like a chance of something happening.
The trap was set. Everyone knew their roles. The shop was filling up with players preparing to outwit their opponents. They thought the game was going to be on the tables in front of him, but they were still unaware of the game playing out around them.
We were packed. I locked the door. I made the announcement to everybody. I said, hey, here's what's going down. You are very welcome to leave and strongly encouraged to leave. We'll have 2 unmarked officers stationed inside, but I don't want anyone to be part of a risky situation here. And one of these guys does have a history of armed burglary or armed robbery or something like that. And fully expected everybody to get up and leave. Just, sensible. Nobody got up and left. Everybody stayed. They all wanted to see the show, I guess. But I was touched, concerned. And I was like, all right, well, I've got all these people to make sure they're okay. And I was, started to get really anxious, worried about like what could go wrong.
Well, unfortunately, I was on the way down to Williamsburg for my great aunt's funeral. Rest in peace, Aunt B, bless your heart. And I'm going down there with my brother, and it's very tense. That day going down to Williamsburg was when it was all happening.
When the criminals arrived, my heart started pounding, and I immediately told the officers, asked them, they walk, right up, beeline to the door. They try to open it, it's locked, and they can see that there's a ton of people in the shop. So I just walk up to the door and just try to like put on my best poker face I can, just be like, 1 minute, and hopefully they're like too confused to really think it through what's about to go down. And then they're like, what's that? And it's one canine unit from around the block and other officers from the other side. And they had guns drawn. They were like shouting at the criminals, get on the ground. And it was all really quick. Everything kind of was a blur for me at that point. And I remember seeing the guys that got on the ground, put their boxes of cards that weren't theirs on the ground. They like put their hands in the back of their head while they're laying belly flat. But it took a while for the nerves to kind of calm back down. Although I would say that the players pretty quickly returned to enjoying their games. After the arrest, the vibe in the store, I would say there's a little bit more elation than normal. People were kind of excitedly talking about what happened. People were like texting each other, posting about it. It was like, wow, we were all just part of something really intense.
Have you seen Scott Pilgrim vs. the World? The vegan police come because the guy admits to like eating, I forget, yogurt or something. And the vegan police come and they arrest him. And as they leave, they kind of do this slow motion high five. It's also kind of like a Top Gun high five. So we're in the middle of a funeral. We get a text from our buddy saying like, we got the guys, we got the cards. My brother and I stand up, calmly leave the funeral, away from the vision of all of our family who is mourning the death of my great aunt, and abruptly just erupt. And so excited and just do one of these. Just felt like just the ultimate high five with each other.
And that is how it's done.
And it was just amazing, incredible feeling. And then we, of course, just kind of bowed our heads and went back in and carried on. And my parents were so, obviously very invested in this too. So that, gave them a big hug and stuff. And it was really exciting, weird conflux of emotions on that day.
But Kemper did not have his cards back yet. The backpack with his decks was evidence, so it was still with the police. And even though the criminals had been caught red-handed, they weren't interested in a deal. They wanted to fight the charges.
So the Fairfax County guy, detective, he called me. He said, well, usually we hold on to this stuff until trial and all that. But he's like, but we have all that we need. It's so obviously yours because of all these top hats. And this is the quote that he gave me. He was like, top hats and canes are easier to track down than serial numbers. But then I was looking through the cards and my heart sank. Like all of them weren't there. So then probably a few more days later, I get invited by the Prince William County Department to come by because they have my backpack. And Detective Cunningham is the Prince William guy. So then they sit me down and they give me my backpack and I open it up and at the bottom is all of the missing cards at the bottom of the backpack.
We happy? Vincent? We happy?
Yeah, we happy.
And I was like, okay, all right, this is wonderful. This couldn't have gone any better. And they held me there and asked me more about, magic cards and stuff. And then let me go. And then I saw them all again at the trial.
That's right. This went to trial. The thief was caught with the stolen collection literally in his hands, but decided against everyone's advice that he wanted to fight the charges in court.
Did turn into a trial. It should have been just like in and out. Both the detectives are there from Prince William and Fairfax. Witness from Painted Visions, he's an awesome guy. He, the guy who started it all off. He was there to first identify them. Of course, there was the perpetrator and his, lawyer. I guess the prosecutor comes up to me and says, like, well, how do you want to handle this? I just want this guy to, like, not steal stuff anymore. Like, I don't know. I don't really know how to go about this. So he's like, well, he's actually saying that they were trying to settle, like, well, we're thinking, like, he gets 6 months of probation and, like, a year's worth of community service and, like, maybe, like, a month in jail or something. And I was like, sure, man, like, whatever you guys got, I don't care. I got my cards back.
They wanted to offer him 6 months of probation and a year's worth of community service after 1 month in jail. Remember that.
So then the guy talks to the other lawyer, and then he comes back just, like, incredulous, saying that, the perpetrator is fighting the case. And, like, just, like, basic, like, I don't know, circuit court or something. So then Detective Cunningham, the guy I mentioned earlier, was just so mad. He was like, this is my lunch break. I've never seen this before. We've got 2 detectives from 2 counties. We've got, the witness. Oh, and the police officer was there, the on the case guy. Everybody was here. And, he's like, his mind was blown that, so angry that we all had to, like, go through this, what felt like a Judge Judy case at this point. So I go on the stand as a witness and I get, like, cross-analyzed. So they asked me questions. He was trying to get me, I guess, on slipping up or lying or something. And he was like, so was the car, locked, when he was broken into? And I was like, no, the car was not locked when it was broken into. And the guy was like, okay. Was there any damage to the car? And I was like, no. The guy was like, I have no more questions. Just, like, sat down. I was like, this is so weird. And then the judge just takes the opportunity just to ask me about, like, tell me about magic cards. Like, what are these things? And I relate it to, like, comic books, I think is what I did. There's 2 sides to them. There's the actual part where you ingest it as media, and then there's the part where it's collectible and worth money. So there was nothing. I don't know. Like, I left after that. I never knew what happened to the guy. I don't know. What the consequences are for, like, fighting, a settlement like that. I don't know, man.
Well, obviously, I had to find out. According to the Fairfax County General District Court records, Solomon Reed, who was 20 at the time, was charged with felony possession of stolen property with intent to sell. Reviewing their online records, it seems that Reed was sentenced to 2 years in prison with 2 years of probation. Reed has since, in Fairfax, been charged with violation of probation, assault and battery, attempted robbery, failure to appear, and shoplifting.
Well, seems like he should have taken the plea deal for the settlement.
Thanks to the quick thinking and the cooperation of Kemper, Tom, and the police, the stolen cards were recovered and the suspects were caught. It was a victory for Kemper and the Magic community, and a lesson to all thieves. Mess with a Magic player's cards, and you might get counterspelled.
I like to fantasize that the Magic community, broke down a car theft operation ring that's been going around in the neighborhoods for weeks or something. I don't know. This is such a cool story and it's heartwarming and shows how great the Magic community is. But unfortunately, people have reached out to me and said, hey, my collection got stolen. What did you do? And too many times, unfortunately, it's actually people who know what Magic cards are, which makes it so much harder to get them back. We were lucky that it was just these doofuses on the street not knowing what they're dealing with. My journey has not really happened again for a lot of people who have lost their cards, which is a bummer.
I found this entire story via a Washington Post article that I'll link in the description, and when I was reading it, you could tell the writer was doing their best to talk about Magic the Gathering while not knowing really anything about it at all. There was one line in the article that actually made me laugh out loud the first time I was reading it. It said, after filing a police report, Pogue decided to do what a Magic character like Garrick Relentless might do and hunted down his enemies with dogged ferocity, sans the battle axe. Do you have any message for any would-be MTG thieves in the Springfield, Fairfax, Virginia area?
Well, like my favorite planeswalker, Garrick Relentless, the Magic community ain't gonna give up on it. Tell you that. When you just see the guy just like Google search like some obvious characters in Magic and just kind of slotted me in on it. My friend photoshopped a picture of my head on a Garrick Relentless. Maybe I can find that and send that to you too.
So it seems like across the entire world MTG community, friends are never going to let you live down your most embarrassing moments. But hopefully, you've got some friends who will help you track down your stolen MTG cards. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching a video that is very different from anything we ever post on the channel. We're trying some new stuff this year, so if you liked it, clicking that like button and leaving a comment down below would be much appreciated. And share it with a friend. Share it with an MTG friend who you think might find this story interesting as well. Special thanks to Tom from Curio Cavern and Kemper for joining me for this video. Their firsthand accounts are what made this possible. Big thanks too to our patron Spectre for helping me with some of the numbers on legacy decks and what the prices of those are now. That's going to do it for me on this one. We appreciate it. We'll catch you later.